Frank Turvey.
Yeah, some of the long-term solutions, I believe, and also, and the legislation also, city shortfall, I think we'll be coming upon that once again, that would add new revenues and taxes. I will do everything in my power to support the legalization, regulation, and taxation of marijuana. I believe this would add to new revenues and taxes and probably take care of the PERS and TERS. Since we got all these city, state, and former employees, if we legalize marijuana, they could come out of the closet.
Vivian
You know what I
Stead.
mean?
Thanks, Frank. I think number one is that we do need to maintain a good budget. We have to stay within our charter and have a balanced budget at the city. I think that's primary. I also believe that we need to keep infrastructure strong. We're looking at a Vision Fairbanks plan. We have an organized plan to look at certain ideas for economic growth and development of our area. All that's great, but if you don't have a government that's running adequately and taking care of the citizens, keeping an infrastructure, inviting more business in, having more economy here, then we'll lose. So my big goal is to make sure that we stay within a balanced budget, we have that diversified revenue stream, and we take care of our infrastructure.
Don Seeliger.
Thank you. One of the largest issues, it's been touched on by several people here, is we have to get a handle statewide on the TERS and PERS issue. And the PERS issue has to be dealt with. The state right now says the city of Fairbanks owes $120 million, and of course we don't. But that's for another discussion. But we got to keep the pressure on Juneau to get this dealt with, and in the very near future, because as it goes on, it gets worse and worse. We need to diversify our tax base. Even if we have the property tax passed through and we get some legislation in place that would cover us, we still need to look at maybe going farther and diversifying our tax base even farther. Another thing that's very important and has been put on the back burner is we need to look at the southern route of the Alaska Railroad going to the south of Fairbanks and taking away 48 at-grade crossings for the safety of the people inside the borough. This is a huge issue and something that if they build the 5.7 miles around the backside of Fort Wainwright, we'll never hear another word from them, and it'll never happen. So it's a big issue. We got to get that southern route. Thank you.
Nelson Miles.
Per statewide PERS and TERS program, borough and citywide, a revenue and tax source that applies to everyone equally who uses the services of this city and the borough. Thank you.
Billy Blanchard.
So economic development, I think, is number one. Promote that. That then, turns into helping with revenue diversification and the tax issues, making things more equitable for our homeowners. Education certainly is huge. I mean, that's actually the biggest of the borough budget, and we need to make sure that we're, engaging our students, keeping them in school. I think is important, and our education funding, plays a role in that. Revenue sharing certainly, we need to get that back, and in the borough budget, I'm just concerned about the spending. I know we're under the tax cap, but the concern is that we've had increased revenue from the new construction. And if that's not something that's going to continue, then we need to be looking at the costs and where we're spending things. Thank you.
And Guy Sadley.
I'm glad that Don Seeliger mentioned the railway, a little maybe more interesting than this repeat of this residential exemption discussion. This railway deal is a very big deal for this community, and what it amounts to is, as he said, if they spend these millions of dollars putting the railway in the north part of Wainwright, it means that will be the main route. If there ever is a reconstructed railway to Eielson, a constructed railway to Delta and to Canada, and if the connection into Canada ever comes about, and I have some faith that in 20 or 30 years that might be the case, that having spent all that money on that route through the north part of Wainwright, it feeds right down Trainer Gate Road, across the Steesh, the old Steesh, and the city mayor over there is nodding his head, he knows what I'm talking about. It's terrible, a terrible idea, and having spent those tens of millions of dollars on that new route, it'll never get moved to the southern area. The southern area comes down the Parks Highway, goes around the airport, and so on. It's much more sensible, eliminates all the crossings that Don mentioned. And I'll just, so that's a big priority. The residential exemption, of course, and if the sales tax fails, the borough sales tax that you haven't asked about, it's on the ballot. I think it'll fail. If that fails, then we need to even push harder on the residential exemption, because if the residential exemption is increased to 50,000 or 100,000, it'll take the pressure off the residents and take the pressure off a push for a sales tax. Thank you.
All right, we've heard from everybody. Our questions are over. I guess we're going to have everybody will have 1 minute to have your final say at the public forum, the public hearing here tonight. So you get 1 minute. It's been a long night. We've learned a lot of information, learned a lot about the candidates. You have your own personal forums where folks can come see and learn more about your campaigns. But each get 1 minute to sell us on why we should elect you for office. We'll start with Guy Centley.
Okay, I guess I grabbed off a few seconds on that last one, so I saw you edging towards the mic there slowly. So I'll be short. I've enjoyed serving on the Assembly. I took a year off this last year, mandated by the rules. I'm told I do a pretty good job on the Assembly, and I guess my one desire would be to see that everybody in the borough, including the folks in the outlying areas, get treated equitably and treated fairly by a government that is by nature headquartered in the city of Fairbanks and tends, naturally not because of any evil intention, but tends to be more urban oriented and sort of run by urban oriented folks. And I think I've brought a sort of a rural aspect to the thing. So that's why I look for your vote. Thank you very much.
Billy Blanchard.
Well, I think my 20 years of experience in financial institutions, I've been with Matt Federal Credit Union for 14 years and 7 as a CEO, and I bring a financial background, which I think will certainly benefit with the budget area. I've served my community through volunteer work, and I see this as the next step to serving my community. I'd be proud to step up and serve the borough citizens. I support economic development and quality education. I believe a strong relationship with our military is important to our economic development. And I think we need to bring gas line in. We need this for lower energy costs, and our homeowners are suffering not only with tax burden, but the energy costs, and with $80+ a barrel, we're all going to see some tough times this winter. I support transparent accountability in government. It's important to look at all of our options, and I think I can bring consensus to the borough. So I ask for your vote on October 2nd. Thank you.
Nelson Miles.
Just real quick, and no, nothing behind this. I've asked, the question's been asked 3 or 4 times, am I related to Dale Miles? I mean, Day Miles. And I'm not.
In any way.
It's been asked a question. I'm opposed to the city council 4.9 mil cap. I support a revenue source that comes equally from everyone who uses the resources of the city and the borough. Everybody has an obligation to pay their own way, and property taxes, to me, are residential property taxes are an unfair tax. So, thank you.
Don Seeliger.
I want to thank you very much for having this forum tonight and giving us this opportunity to talk to people. I think that over the last 3 years, the time I spent on the city council, I prepared myself for the job of mayor by getting involved in as many different issues as I could and as many different committees as I could sit on. I spent 3 years working on the finance committee in a $30 million budget and having to squeak it every year and go to meetings at 7 a.m. to figure out where we could cut or where we could add to try and make Fairbanks a better town. We've been able to maintain some form of capital projects, which helps us maintain our infrastructure. We have been able to add people to our public safety department, which is a big area of concern for us. And so consequently, I'd like to continue going on and keeping the budget in line with the taxes that the people do pay, and keep the tax issue down and spend the people's money very frugally. Thank you.